What's up, Northwest? My name is Boston Mendenhall, and this is Behind the Huddle. Just a little precursor to this interview. This is not a very typical interview. We had a lot of problems with the files and recovery and everything like that, so we were able to lose a few of them. So the audio quality isn't exactly up to insane par, but the interview is still great. I was able to fix a lot of it, so hopefully you're able to still listen to it and everything like that. But without further ado, here's Coach Watson.
Welcome to Behind the Huddle. My name is Boston Mendenhall, and today we have a very special guest. We have Coach Watson. Coach Watson is the boys' basketball head coach. He's been here since the inception of Northwest, and he has led the team to multiple state playoffs, and also to, if you remember the year, it was absolutely crazy. The state championship, arguably I think the actual state championship was the semifinals against Waukee, personally. But today we're going to talk about just how he builds his teams and also just the different cultures and stuff that he does to make the program so great. So welcome to the show, Coach Watson.
Thank you, Boston. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. So just trying to get like an idea of like you as a coach and everything like that. I'm going to some basketball has been a part of your life for a while, so you can kind of tell us about how you got into basketball and what made the decision to go and start coaching.
Yeah, so my parents have a picture of me as a young baby. I think it's 3 or 4 days old, and there's a basketball right next to me. And we kind of joke that, ever since then, like I haven't put the basketball down. Just kind of been a big passion of mine. Obviously, I played in high school and college, and just, you learn a lot about yourself when you compete in different sports. I was a 4-sport athlete in high school, but basketball was always just my passion. I remember growing up, we had to go to the library, pick out a book. It was a basketball book. Sophomore year, what's your career path going to be? College basketball coaching. So basketball has just been a huge passion and kind of my number one hobby that I've spent a lot of time with. And just something I enjoy doing, if it's watching, playing, teaching it, just learning anything about it.
Yeah. And initially, you kind of like made the decision to start coaching. Like, who helped influence that decision? Was there somebody you got inspired by?
So yeah, I would definitely say my parents. My dad was my high school coach, which is another whole podcast we could do. But no, that was a very special time, to have your dad as a coach and some of those experiences. And also my mom too. She comes from a family of 10, and I think 8 out of the 10 were coaches. A lot of them were Hall of Fame high school football coaches, but just always around coaches with our family. And we kind of just joke that it's in my blood. I remember my first semester in college, I'm doing anything but teaching and coaching. It lasted 1 semester, and I knew that just was my career path. My passion was to be a teacher and a coach. And like I said, I've been surrounded my whole life and just kind of feel like it's in my blood.
Yeah. So what initially, like getting after you came out of college and everything like that, what was like your first coaching job? And like, was the goal to eventually get to the point where you're at right now, where you're a head coach? High school, or do you want to go to college? Do you want to go NBA?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
So I remember my senior year of college. I had quite a few conversations with my head coach in college, and he's like, "You'd be a really, really good coach." And I knew that was going to be my passion. He really wanted me to stay on staff with him, and I was like, kind of debating: do I go college or go high school? And again, go back to my father. We had a long conversation. He's like, "If you want to be a really good coach, you got to learn how to teach." And so I decided that the high school route would be the best route for me. And ironically, through those first few years, when I was a high school coach and teacher, I was still applying to college jobs, and a lot of different reasons those didn't come to fruition. But I think a lot of the path is, and there's a reason everything happens, and I learned everything from all my different spots. Coaching different sports. I coached high school football for a while, coached junior high track. So all those different experiences kind of get you and lead you to a wonderful place like Northwest that I'm right now, and I feel very fortunate to be the head coach here.
Yeah, so I actually learned this from Dewey. Initially in Northwest, you weren't supposed to be Northwest head basketball coach, supposed to be old, right? And then he decided to take up the role as like this guy. So was it kind of like a surprise to you that you kind of got the call, or like how did that happen to your job here?
Yeah, so I was at Indianola at the time, and from a distance, you knew that the schools were splitting, and everything that I knew was, Coach Joel was going to continue at as the head coach at Northwest, the new school, and I had no idea the position would ever be open. And then Ironically, I have some family in the school district. They reached out and said, "Hey, I think this head coaching job is going to be available." Well, that got me excited. But as a high school coach, you got to know, is there any teaching involved with it? And so the first thing I did is got online, and there was an engineering position, project lead away, which I was doing in Mendenhall. I'm like, this is kind of lining up, and so I, put my name in the hat. Was fortunate to get an interview, and obviously extremely fortunate to get the offer. And when Mr. Dewey called me, it was a no-brainer. I was ready to make the jump up here. And like I said, everything kind of happens for a reason, kind of leads up to everything. And and I also feel fortunate to work also under Coach Joel as an administrator, just to kind of pick his brain too with all of his experience. And so, again, it's just been a perfect fit.
Yeah. So, in preparation for this interview, I was able to talk with some guys in the team about just in general your philosophy, which is really bad at into. So the three things that came up, which I mean, most coaches have some level of pillars or things, but the three pillars were discipline, self-awareness, and compete. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
And then, so I kind of just want to go into that. So obviously you've been coaching for a while and you know you wanted to coach, and you come from family like it's in your blood, kind of trying to see. You're probably always surrounded with. I don't want to say necessarily buzzwords, but like certain things that you would want certain athletes or certain things to do. So how did you get to these three, and kind of can you explain what's what you mean and what?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long process. It hasn't been, we call them our core values. It hasn't been a core value of every coaching job that I've had. But to us, like, there's two parts to this core value. Number one of the core values, we kind of look at it as a pyramid, like our pyramid of success. Is the very bottom of our pyramid are these core values. We feel like those are the most important, like that's the strongest part of our program. And so that is the very base of our pyramid to success that leads us to some of the results. So we think about the process, that's where we start with those core values. The second part of those core values is how it kind of came to those three is, if a stranger or another coach or another player tried to describe our program, those are the three words we would hope that they would say, that they would see night in and night out. So again, you mentioned those three. The first one we'll talk about is competing. We just believe like we want to give our absolute best effort in everything that we do. I mean, on the court, if it's in the weight room, if it's in the classroom, like just giving 100%. With that, we kind of have a visual for that. We guys can talk about we're street dogs. Like we're not one of those mall dogs. We're not one of those pet store dogs. Like we want to be those street dogs that are just always hungry, looking to compete for that next meal or just to defend their territory. And so again, we really want to exemplify that we are going to compete in everything that we do. Next one is discipline. We talk a lot about the mental game, and discipline to us means what the most important play is always that next play. Like no matter if we do something well, if we face some adversity, can we focus in on that next play mentality. The last one is selflessness. Just trying to get everyone to understand like it's not about us, it's not about me, it's not about them. It's about all of us together. Our visual for that is a fist. Kind of stole that from Coach K from Duke. Is you're your strongest when you have all five fingers together and clenched, not when one finger's out or two fingers. It's all five people. Again, basketball, you got five players on the floor. It's all five of those guys come together. And so we talk about the base of our program, the strong foundation we're trying to build is those three areas. What I love about those core values is, I'm talking about the basketball side of it, but those are things that we feel like in life can kind of separate you from other people. Are you competitive, competing for if it's a job or something like that? Same thing with being more disciplined, kind of separating yourself from other people, and also just being selfless, being about other people, not about yourselves.
Yeah. How did you come to putting all those together? Because you've been through multiple coaching jobs. Like, was there a slow evolution? Like, was there originally 4, but then maybe 3? Like, how did that?
Yeah, I think it started with 5, and I just like the number 3 is kind of a magical number. It's not too many. It's not like the bare minimum. I just feel like 3 is a really good number. And again, we've had different ones before. Composure, concentrate, different ones like that. But I just feel like those 3 kind of exemplify everything that I would like our guys to do as they're part of this program, but also when they graduate and move on, that they can apply to to college, to jobs, their marriage as a father, things like that.
Yeah. There doesn't necessarily have to be an answer to this question, but is there a hierarchy of like which of those 3 that you want in to see an athlete first? Like, is there for example, like someone on JV who's like thinking about getting a diploma for either state tournament or just in general, like coming to possibly sit on the bench and practice and stuff like that. Like, is there something that you value more out of those three, or all of them kind of equal on the same playing field when you look at athletes?
And that's why we use that visual of a pyramid. When you think of a pyramid, like we don't want it to be slanted, like the Leaning Tower P's or something like that. Like we want all three of those to be the strong foundation of everything that we do. So again, that is the bottom, but they're all equal right there. That you got to be strongest in your base of the pyramid, and so all three of those I feel are equal.
Yeah. So if there's like problems with an athlete, and like based around those three things, is it like how do you handle like people who aren't necessarily fitting that? Is it like conversations you usually have with them? I know, for example, a lot of different coaches have a lot of check-ins, and a lot of them are always talking to them versus like also talking like in game film, like maybe improve on this, or just because a lot of these I feel like are a lot more intangibles because it's not your free throw percentage. It's not like, oh, our top three guys is you need to like be 90% on free throws and you need to like stuff like that, right? It's not average points, it's like intangibles, so how do you help people figure that out?
Well, one thing our program does is after every game we have a player assigned to that game and they make a highlight video. And of those highlight videos, at least one or two of those clips have to show one of our core values. So for instance, let's say Boston, you're playing tomorrow and you dive on the floor, that player might clip that out and say, that is an example of a player competing. So not only is the guy that's making that film looking throughout the game of our core values, it's also showing the other players, hey, here's an example of what it means to compete. So maybe, player C might see that like, you know what, I should dive on the floor more to exemplify that right there, or again, discipline, or maybe just a simple thing is showing like a high five or a fist pound and showing that this is what we're looking for in this program. The more that we can do that. Again, it's not just the player that's making the film, but it's also, like you seeing that on film, like getting recognized for that by your peer, but also the other one seeing like, hey, maybe that's something that I can do. Like you said, it's not a tangible thing of 9 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. It's something that you can do that, is not have to put the ball through the hoop or something like that.
Would you say that like some of the best people you've coached exemplify those degrees? Like
100%. I go back to that first year here. We had just some unbelievable seniors that were that didn't get a lot of varsity time, but they were unbelievable teammates. Just talking about being selfless. Like a team would call out a play and they'd be yelling at the bench, telling our guys on the floor, this is what they're doing. And so that's how you build a team. That's how you build a program. It's not just about the five that are on the floor. It's the guys that are there night in, night out, and put in that time and help to contribute, even though they might not be on the floor at that time.
Yeah. So kind of I want to talk a bit about like the selfless one, because I know that at least in this school it's been weird with a lot of like transfers, and I know that at least as an athlete, you have to do what's best for the team, and I've done that in the past. Like I play lacrosse, so a lot of the time it's like, as much as I want to play offense, maybe my best position for the team is on the play defense. Maybe I want to do certain things right. So, when it comes, this is a long drawn out question. So it's going to be talking about like transfers. Like how do you help people? Like when a transfer comes in or anything like that, how do you help your team like reconcile what happened and like possibly like compete for minutes and stuff like that? Or usually is that not too much of a problem because of the values already instilled in the team, but they realize like, hey, maybe this is for the best in order for us to get to the eventual goal of lifting the trophy come that one game. So
yeah, I think that's what it starts with is just teaching those core values. Like again, this is what we're about. That's why I like the number 3. Like it's not a lot. Like it's not a lot to memorize. Like, oh, okay, what are all the different things coach is looking for? It is those 3 things, and also, I've been very fortunate here to talk about that first group, and they exemplified selflessness more than any team I've ever been a part of. Well, then that next year's team see that. Then the next team see that. So when you bring in a guy or a new guy comes into the program, if I be that kid that played on sophomores last year, someone from outside the program, they've already seen that, okay, this is what Northwest boys basketball is about. Like this is a very selfless part of this. And again, you keep exemplifying that. You keep, bringing that to the forefront of this is what we're looking for, and eventually they see like this is what I want to be a part of. And I think it's true no matter if it's in the job force or you go to college or if it's lacrosse, basketball, football, whatever sport it is, like it's a part of a team and you want to be part of that team. And again, that's what you said is it leads to success, and so the buy-in is pretty easy once it's really put to the forefront.
Okay, I kind of want to talk about preseason when it comes to like a lot of these things of like transfers. So when it comes to a person who's making a roster for the first team or maybe transfers in, like how do you help assimilate them to the team and try to get into the culture to try to buy into these things?
Yeah, I mean, so we talk about compete as, we have open gyms during the summer, we have open gyms during the fall, and so there's just opportunities for them to see is like the gym's going to be open. If you want to compete for your spot, there are opportunities for you to get better. Along with that, one of the things I love most is in the fall we do a mental game. We have a guy named John Fitzpatrick that does just an unbelievable job of teaching the mental game and just kind of understanding what it takes to, number one, just be aware of when adversity strikes. So when you're having a lot of success, like how do you handle that? So the awareness kind of comes first, and then he does an unbelievable job of giving strategies to athletes to how to handle some of those moments of when you're not playing your best or things don't go your way, or if you're have a lot of success, how you can bring yourself back to. We talk about being neutral a lot, and again, that's not just in the basketball court. That could be in the lacrosse field. It could be in the classroom. Could be in college. Could be a job interview or something like that, and. That's what, as old guy like me with the gray hairs, and you have some of those guys that come back and meet with you just like, hey, coach, like I won this job over somebody else because of those skills that you taught us, way back when. And so again, just a shout out to John Fitzpatrick. He does an unbelievable job. Fitzpatrick Peak Performance is his side business, if you want to call it. But we just kind of again, educate, and then just keep bringing it to the forefront of this is what we're about. And this is, different strategies of how to bring that to life.
Yeah. How did you initially get to do that when you decided to make that decision to either bring them on, or do some kind of like more mental focuses? Like, could you see a big difference in the team?
Yeah, and I can't tell you the exact year, but again, I told you, I have a great passion for the game of basketball. And there's a Bobby Knight quote that the mental to physical is 4-1. And so you hear that all the time, but how many coaches are actually teaching that, to the 4-1 part of it. And so, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I kind of just dug in a little bit. The first book I read was The Inner Game of Tennis, and just really got my mind thinking, and talked to my dad a little bit because he had read that book. Phil Jackson was really big into the mental side of it. And I mentioned I was at Indianola before, and that's where John Fitzpatrick was assistant AD. And one of our first conversations, we're kind of talking about that. He's like, well, I kind of do this as a side business. And so he and I just kept talking. And so at Indianola, he kind of worked with our team. And when I got the job at Northwest, I said, hey, John, like, we're hiring you. Like, we need you to come in. And so again, like I just talked about, go back to that quote, it's 4-1. So I want to make sure as a coach that I'm teaching our athletes how important this is, but also what it is, and then what strategies they can use to apply it not only to the basketball floor, but also into the real world.
Yeah. Most athletes generally, at least with my team too, and I guess a lot of other people that I talk to, kind of look at the mental side as something that's like, you don't need to look at it. Like, it's all about playing, right? It's all about like, what's your percentages? It's all about like how you're actually performing. And at least we're talking a lot of these other coaches, like, for example, like bowling, you wouldn't think it would be too much. Some of you bowl the ball, right? But like the mental aspects and things you have to do is training a lot. And I also think that with basketball, it's very similar too, because when you look at how many shots a person gets in a game, I mean, we'll dig into the stats later, because apparently we love stats. I mean, math teacher,
I'm a nerd.
But like, the amount of shots you have in a game is a lot different than what you would imagine. Like, when you actually break the numbers down, and just going into kind of more of like the mental aspect of everything. Like, how have you, like, knowing that you played as a player, try to help prepare? When we kind of talked about it, like, you had the guys that come in before, but like, he's not going to be there every single day of practice helping you and kind of like almost to some extent holding what you're saying. Like, how do you help in those moments where you're walking in at halftime and you're down by 5, or you're walking and guess what, there's a minute left and you're down by 4 and you need to score points, put points in the board. Like, how do you help them continue to?
Well, like you mentioned, it all starts with John. Like he kind of, he sets that foundation. Then my role, my part of it is to keep that going. Like I said, he does an unbelievable job in the fall. We meet on Sunday nights. We just don't stop there. Like, this is an integral part of our program. And so one of the biggest things is just the common language. So what John is teaching is I'm making sure that I'm using that same terminology so the kids know, okay, hey, that's what John taught us, and that's what we can apply now. I mentioned already is like we're really big at just staying neutral, not too low, not too high, is just trying to stay neutral as much as possible. And so it might be a timeout situation where we're facing some adversity. How can I get them back to neutral? And so again, we have different strategies we do for that. We have different terminologies I simply just tell them, like, maybe it's a get big, like breathe in greatness, or again just saying, hey, get to neutral. Same thing at halftime. Maybe we're really high with it, just trying to get them back. Like, okay, guys, neutral. That's where we want to be at. We spend some time before games with mental imagery, is getting ourselves into that correct mindset, and just with some of our confidence conditioning, and just trying to replay past success, so we can try to recreate that as much as possible. And again, work on the meditation part of it too. And so again, John lays the foundation, and I make sure that throughout the year we'll keep reinforcing it and just using that common language of what he taught to make sure that we're doing it each and every day to keep kids at that neutral state and hopefully be at peak performance.
Do you ever, like, I'm guessing it happens all the time, but like seeing like an athlete struggle going through something, whether that's even like outside of the game when they're walking into practice and there's like maybe they're mentally down, or maybe they had a rough week, or if they're not playing their best, like how do you help them like kick back into gear? Do you help like use certain terminology in order to like help remind them?
Yeah, the first thing is always just a conversation, because it could be something just personal, or it could be something on the basketball floor. One thing we talk about is signal lights. You have a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. Obviously, we want to be in green light as much as possible. But we always talk about that the yellow light is where the money's at. We kind of throw this out there again. Here's a math statistic for you. Each quarter, every player is going to be faced with at least 3 adverse situations. If it's a bad call, or if they sprain their ankle, if a missed shot, or at least 3, and that's what we call about, okay, so if you miss a shot per se, that's a yellow light moment. Okay, well, we have different strategies of how we can physically maybe snap our fingers, wipe our brow or something like that to get ourselves into that green light moment. So again, it always comes back to, first of all, just being aware that, okay, I've dropped down to that yellow light. Now giving them a strategy, what can I do to get back to that green light? Because again, green light's where that peak performance is. And again, it might be something that's outside of basketball that we might need to talk about. Like, okay, maybe that's something you just need to flush and let's just concentrate on basketball now. Or maybe that's a deeper conversation that we can do to, again, just get them into that green light moment as much as possible.
Yeah. So what would you kind of say some of those red light things are if you're getting to a point where it's like you're going downhill versus uphill?
The first thing we always talk about is body language. When you're in that green light, I mean, you're 10 feet tall, your chest is out, like you're strong as you can be. Yellow light, you're starting to drop your shoulders a little bit, maybe shake your head. Red light is when you're just completely down, you're slouched over, maybe your palms are up or something like that. So again, that, as we always say, film doesn't lie. So there's opportunities where I might look at the film and say, okay, hey, I can tell you were in a red light moment here. Why didn't you snap into the green? Or here's an opportunity for you to be aware that you were into the red light. You might not have known that. Get yourself into the green. One thing we talked about kids too is just that their self-talk. Like, what are you telling yourself? And again, when you're in a green light situation, let's say, hey, I'm the best player, or, like you're really building yourself up. When you get to the red, that's when you're really like, I'm terrible, I'm the worst player, or whatever. Again, we want kids to be aware of when that happens. And then give them strategies if it's their confidence conditioning statement that they can just tell themselves multiple times to get themselves back to that green light moment.
There doesn't necessarily have to be an answer to this, because if the system's working great, you shouldn't see it at all. But has there been like either an athlete or an instance where like at the beginning of the season someone wasn't doing so great, but like when you got to state tournament, you could like tell that they were able to like control and compose themselves more? Is there anything that's ever happened like that?
And I would say not just beginning of season, end of season, but throughout a game.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, there's at least 3 every quarter that you're going to have to experience. And it does take a while. And it's not easy as you're competing, especially in this league with the crowds that we have, to really be aware when those situations. I mean, it does take practice. It does take time. But that's, again, it's just part of the process. That's something that we just keep teaching because we believe it is that important. Like you said, when you get to those situations, we have the state tournament, it might be a semifinal game, might be the state championship where the crowd's so loud you can't hear your teammates, you might not be able to hear your coach. Like that's why we're leading up to that situation that they have those skills and those abilities to be at peak performance because that's all you can ask for.
Yeah. Going into kind of diving into like the bigger games or things like that, how do you help them manage just the pressure of a bigger game? Like the game against like someone like Van Meter is not going to be the same value as a game going against Waukee. Maybe both of you play it at home, but like one of them is going to be like the biggest game possibly of like the regular season or like the biggest value for the game. So like, how do you help them handle the pressure?
We talk a lot about it's the process. Like when we just focus on our process, that's the first part of it, and the second part is staying consistent. I mean, we always talk about like it's a faceless opponent. It doesn't matter who we're playing or what situation it is. We want to keep everything as consistent as possible. I've made a lot of mistakes as a coach, and I've kind of learned like the times that you want to change something completely. That number one, the players lose faith in you, and then number two, they're out of their routine and they're not going to be able to perform at their highest level. So again, we just try to as much as possible just focus in on the process. That's where the core values come into. That's what comes into our preparation every practice, every game. And then also, I think you're talking about analytics, where our analytics come into play. And we just focus in on the process and just understand it's a day by day, it's a practice by practice, a game by game, and stay as consistent as possible. That's when we feel like we'll be performing our best come state tournament time or state championship time.
Yeah. Do you ever have to help your athletes with perspective at all? Because I know that at least like I've been screwed in the past a couple of times because I made the decision when I'm at that quote unquote red light, or made the decision when I'm at the green, where I'm not like a neutral state, where it's like the best thing ever just happened and then make a decision then, like you should ever make a decision up here, more or less down here. Or has there ever been like points in time in the season where you have to help athletes like just take a step back, like we just had 2 big losses that we like. That's unfortunate, but guess what? Like it happens. Like it's fine. It's not the end of the world. We're not like the world is literally not going to end tomorrow because of the thing that's happened. Or like these games are really good, but like don't get headstrong. Like how do you help them keep perspective in the span of like the whole season?
Yeah, again, it comes back to is like it's a process. Like a win or a loss is just another opportunity for you to learn and to grow. It's the same thing in the classroom. It's like one test is not going to define your whole term or your whole grade, but it just kind of tells you where you're at. If you're at peak performance, or there's some things, some areas that you need to improve on. But again, I've really learned as a coach that that's why you just got to be so consistent with everything that you do. Like you can't just change everything if you lose. You can't just change everything if you win. Like you just got to understand. Again, it's taken a lot of years for me to understand like what I feel like is what best prepares us. It took me a while to understand what's our best core values. It took me a while to understand what's our best analytics to kind of evaluate everything that we do. And again, every year I'm learning that, and so are the players. But the more we can just focus on the process, the more we can be consistent with everything. I think that's what's going to help us in the long run.
Yeah. So I kind of want to dive into this analytics side because there's been one instance, I think it was like last year or something. For some reason, I was trying to I was in a project of the city loss, and I was trying to find like their team room, and I accidentally walked into your room. So, wasn't trying to like pry or anything, but I remember I looked at the board, and it was just like I was almost overwhelmed with the information that you could get from the statistics. Like usually everyone's like free throw percentage, 3%, like how many points did they have, like the most baseline stuff. But like when you look at like points to turnover ratio or like the amount of time on the ball, I mean it's probably different. These are more like ones that we use when I play. But kind of just going into stats, like we'll start with like how much value you have in rely on stats and
Yeah, a lot. Like I said, I'm a math nerd, but I'm also a teacher too. Like I know I'm going to teach AP pre-calculus, and if I give an assignment to you, boss, and I said, hey, here's an assignment, do these 20 problems, but it's not graded. Are you going to do it? You're not going to do it. Let's be real. Like you're not going to do it, or you won't give your best effort.
I might actually. I'm pretty bad at math. But
Okay, so your brother Ford, you're probably not.
Probably will not touch it. Yeah.
Which I was former student,
yeah.
but
throw it away. Second to leave the bell.
so one of the big things I believe with the analytics is I want our athletes to know that every single possession matters, and it matters so much that you're going to be evaluated in what you do.
Yeah.
Now, is it the end all be all? No, but there's a piece of knowing that okay, this matters. Like it matters so much to coach that he's going to spend time afterwards, watching it, statting it out, things like that. And the other part that I've enjoyed with it is it's an accountability piece. Like Boston, you're going to be accountable to yourself and to your teammates to do the things that we're looking for that we believe that are the best to give us the best chance to win. And the fun part of it is that next day is you present that post game evaluation and I don't have to say a word. A lot of times the other kids are saying like, oh, look, Boston, how well you played. Look how high your numbers are. Or the vice versa of it is Boston, you need to step it up. And like, I don't have to say anything. And part of that too is, we talk about a faceless opponent, but there might be a situation where you're highly favored going into it. Well, how am I going to motivate you as an athlete, Boston? Well, you're going to know by the numbers that every single possession, you're going to be evaluated no matter if it's a game that we're favored by 30 or a game that's going to be the state championship game. Like everything again is consistent, knowing that here's the things that we're looking for. I'm going to evaluate you on those things, and there's going to be accountability to yourself and your teammates that you are doing what we're asking you to do. And again, I love numbers. I've always been around numbers my whole life, and it's just something I enjoy doing. And I know that's something you talk about the NBA, the pros, in college, how it's trickled down now. It is a huge part of what leads to success in basketball is those things, those numbers that kind of stick out more than anything else.
Yeah. When it comes to, I'm going to say when it comes to a lot. Anyways, when you look at stats, does it help players understand a lot of decisions that you make? Because I know, for example, like with track, very simple. Hey, this person ran a 60-second 400. This person ran a 54. Who am I going to put in the spot? Oh, maybe the person who did that, right? So is it similar with basketball? Now that you have some kind of measurement, you talked about it a little bit, how you go into meetings, and most of the time you barely have to say anything, where it's like, here are the stats and everything like that. Does it help alleviate some of the pressure when it comes to a lot of coaches? Because a lot of them is you have to make a decision that's controversial. Like a lot of other sports, it's there's not a lot of thought that goes. Not that it's not a lot of thought, but there's a lot less considered with intangibles, and it's just is your score good or are you performing kind of shit?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, it's a tool. Like it's not the only tool to decide playing time, but it is something that we do look at. Again, I can't remember how long I've been doing this, but probably 10, 15 years. But I remember the first year I did it, I had a kid come up and say, Coach, why am I not playing? Then you show him the numbers, and you're like, okay, you're 13th out of 15th. And he's like, oh, kind of shut up. Again, it shows them that you're being held accountable in practices and games to what we're looking for. Again, we kind of have standards of what we believe is makes teams successful, make players successful, and but also it's goals. We throw goals out there, and so just try to motivate athletes, no matter the practice, no matter the game, that you want to try to achieve that goal as much as possible. And if we can get a whole group, whole team trying to meet those goals, we feel like that's going to give us the best chance.
Mm-hmm. So, in some of the conversations that I've had with some of the players previously, before this interview, a lot of them talked about you look at championship teams, especially in high school, and you look at certain metrics. I don't know, stats. Stats is kind of weird. I don't know. Stats. We'll call it stats.
Yep.
Instead of So, what are some of the things that you look at mainly to differentiate from what is currently working and how you guys are doing to where you need to get a championship and winning that? What are the stats that you look at and use? Because looking at bound, I can see someone's rebounds, I can see someone's free throw percentage, I can't see someone's turnover to like possession ratio, like how long they have the ball versus they get the ball differently from them. Like if you give them the ball, they're gonna get the ball differently. So like what are the kind of things that you look at and like either have created or somehow tracked?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the pyramid. So the very bottom was our core values. We call that's our character kind of row, if you want to per se. Our next one is our preparation. And the next one is this the last part of our process, because the very peak is our result, is what we call KPIs. And KPI stands for key performance indicators. So as a team, we have 5 different areas that we set out with these key performance indicators, and we compare them to the last 10 state champions. I mean, let's be real, like everyone's competing to be a state champion. So we look at those 5 different areas, and we looked at, okay, what is the standard? So what is the minimum that those last 10 state champions in Class 4A did in those 5 areas? And then we also compared to the average. So what was the average of those 10 teams? And so after every game, we look at that game. How did we compare to the standard and the average? And we also look at our season-long total. And it gives us a really good idea of, is it our shooting? You mentioned, is our turnovers? Is it our offensive rebounding? So again, just kind of gives us an idea of, okay, guys, we need to improve in one of those areas or maybe all 5 of those. And all those are based upon percentages. So you talk about balances. Okay, here's on the offensive rebounds. Well, we do that based upon percentages. So it's based upon the opportunities for those offensive rebounds. Yeah. So again, you might have 10 rebounds, but there might have been 75 different opportunities. Well, that's not a very good percentage, even though you had 10 rebounds. So again, everything's based upon percentages. So it is a piece of the pie, not just a number that could be skewed based upon the number of possessions or based upon the total that you're looking at.
Yeah. So what are like the 5 categories, and maybe like 1 or 2 of the main things that you look at that like if we win a game, it's because of this, or we're going to be losing games because of these.
Yeah, you want to give all my secrets away, don't you?
I mean,
no, it's not a secret. I mean, our first one is our shooting. We look at our shooting percentage, and within that, we also have some things that we think that lead to that.
Yeah.
So we have our shot quality system. So every shot that a player shoots, we give it a grade 1 through 5.
Is that like mid-game? Do you have like a statistician or assistant or someone?
That's me afterwards. So 4s and 5s are our goal for every athlete to shoot. Humble brag here, but Nebraska stole my shot quality system I came with, and so we have our average that we've had the last 3 years. We also have Nebraska's data too to kind of compare, and it's amazing. They're almost identical, those numbers. And
would like a 5 be like no one's on the person, they're in the corner all by themselves, and it's an open 3? And like a 1 is like.
So yeah, so I'll give you the whole. 5 is an uncontested rim shot. So uncontested to us means that the defense is not right in front of you, not on your side, basically behind you.
Like no pressure.
No pressure, yeah. So a 4 would be a semi-contested rim shot where the defense is basically on your shoulder, or an uncontested 3 where the defense is further than an arm length away. Yeah. Then we get into a 3, which is a contested rim shot, or semi-contested 3-pointer, and an uncontested mid-range, and then down 2 and 1. And so we look at those percentages and also like those points per shot. And again, we want to shoot as many 4s and 5s as possible, which is uncontested rim. Uncontested 3 is so much.
Like when it goes farther down, like how much, like generally speaking, is like the likelihood of it going in? Like if it's a 5, it's like 80%. Or if it's not like a 2, it's like 10%. And what, like 5? Like.
So this is what I'm talking about with, so at Waukee Northwest, if we shoot a 5 the last 3 years, it went in, or the points per shot was like a 1.84. Nebraska was a 1.83. Like, I mean, it's just amazing. So the next highest was an uncontested 3, where we were about like 1.44, and they were, again, right at almost exactly 1.44. Then it's the semi-contested rim, and then a semi-contested 3. Mid-range is not very high percentage shot. Talk about analytics, and then contested shots are the worst type of shots that you can shoot. And again, just gives kids feedback of, hey, you shot that contested shot. Number one, this is why we're teaching not to shoot that. Look at the percentages, but also they can see their numbers of, I'm not getting very much bang for my buck when I shoot those type of shots. So again, it's just they know they're going to be evaluated for the shots that they shoot, but also gives them a little accountability of, this is why we're telling you not to shoot some of these shots. And I've had many discussions with players, especially with the mid-range one, and I just showed the numbers. They're like, okay, maybe you are right that I'm not getting a lot of efficiency from that shot. But again, just another the way that we kind of just evaluate how we play.
So you have shooting, and you said.
When we look at opponent 2-point percentage, basically how well are we doing protecting the rim defensively. We look at O rebound, D rebound, and
So it's
also
like
turnover.
two pointers like specific its own category, or is it just
For the opponents, our opponents shoot from any 2-point shot.
Okay, so like just inside the key or not inside.
Inside the 3-point. Yep, any of those. Yep. Because that's kind of we talk about our objective defensively is to make them shoot a very difficult 2-point shot. And if you go back to the shot quality, that would be a contested shot, a contested 2-point shot, or a mid-range shot.
And a mid-range. Contested mid-range.
Okay, so you know already.
Exactly, yeah.
Suit you up.
No, I don't know that. We got the handle. Good hustle.
There we go.
Random
You can compete. There you go. We get our first core value.
That's it. It's all my position is. So, yeah. So with those, it's just basically almost inverted of like how you're forcing it because like I can't imagine like if when they take a shot, are you looking at like their in lacrosse you something called like slide package? I don't know if you call it the same thing where it's like 4 people out or whatever, and then everyone's moving over here, but then like they move the ball and then someone else has to slide and then each one to fill the spot because like if one person if it's like a double team, right?
Yep.
At least someone's open, so then like how are you gonna recover?
Yep. We call rotations. Yeah, very similar.
So, how do you help, or how do you use certain rotations in order to get that best percentage of the opponent's 2-pointers? Because like that's ultimately what it probably comes down to is when someone drives, you maybe have the double team so they don't get the easy layup, or like maybe you have like someone else in the switch, and that's when someone's moving, when that's someone's in motion, that's when the opportunity is. And that's how good teams are when they can move the ball and they can strike that. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir right now, but like, yeah.
No, it doesn't matter the sport. We kind of talk about we want our defense to be anti-fragile, meaning no matter what they do, we have principles built in to try to force them as most opportunities for those contested twos. And so, I mean, we kind of just explain this is what our objective is, and then we try to drill it as much as possible. And then with film, we kind of just show them like, okay, this is when we did it well, or when we didn't do it. And again, maybe we go back to the drills, or maybe just go back to the film and say, okay, this is when we should have. Like you mentioned, rotate here there's an open guy here, or this is an opportunity that we doubled that we shouldn't have. So again, it's still about the same thing in the classroom. You got to teach it, and you also got to just show them and evaluate that we're doing it correctly or not, and just keep correcting as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. So you have the two ones you have in shooting. You have inside the 3-point arc. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering this. With defensive.
Yep.
Shots.
So basically, yeah.
Just defense inside of it. And then my other kinds of guess. So like. Was it like dribbling percentage? Is like turnover?
So sure, yeah, turnover percentage. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then other main ones is it like with stats? Are you looking at how much they have the ball versus how much they're turning the ball over, or is it like certain situations like that?
Yeah. So again, we have a formula. It's the turnover percentage formula we have for that. So it's your turnovers divided by some other statistics. Basically, like you said, the opportunities to not turn the ball over. And we have some subcategories in that where we look at, our assists. We look at what I call virtual assists, where you might make the right read, the right pass, and the guy just missed the shot. To me, that should be an assist, but obviously it isn't because he didn't score. But we want to reward those types of plays, even though the ball doesn't go through. Again, that's the result. We want to focus in on the process. So we believe virtual assists and obviously real assists help lower our turnover percentage. So again, that's kind of one of those subcategories of turnover percentage that we look at.
Yeah. So I get robbed in this all the time, but something surrounding something called like a hockey assist.
Very similar. Very similar. Yep.
Like you track that too, because like, I mean, usually I always get screwed over because like, I have the ball, I'm running down, and then like I make the pass, he makes the pass. Like the person who made the pass, the second pass, the person getting assist. Like I'm not the person, but like if I drove down and I forced 3 people to slide on me and then pass to someone who passes someone. Like, are you tracking that statistic and like is that
We do.
Is that something that you value high in a player, the ability to like ultimately force the defense to rotate?
We do. Again, that comes back to that's the way that we want to play. And we really want to reward that because that leads to our result, which was an uncontested shot, which we're trying to get to. And again, you won't see that on bound. You wouldn't see that like in a typical box score, but we really want to promote that type of play because again, that's what we're trying to get to, and it leads to that result, make or miss of one of those high quality shots that we're evaluating.
Is the fourth one rebounding?
4 and 5, so offensive rebounding percentage, and defensive rebounding percentage, yeah.
So going into defensive, obviously it's completely different than offense. I mean, not completely different, but like huge differences than offense in the fact that like if everyone tries to rebound the ball and you miss it, and someone's at the top of the like 3-point line, they're just gonna pass it up and it's a 3-point up versus defensive. Like, how do you help track that? Like, what are the things you use?
Yeah, so first of all, the formula for that is our defensive rebounds compared to their offensive, or the opponent's offensive rebounds. So our subcategory there is not only obviously the defensive rebounds you get, but also did you give up an offensive rebound? Mm-hmm. So again, we're going to hold you accountable. Like Boston, if you miss a box out and they get an offensive rebound, obviously that hurts our D rebound percentage. There's a mark, there's a tally mark. So again, that next day, I don't have to say anything. One of your teammates will say, hey, Boston, maybe you have 1 or 2 or 3 of them like, hey, man, you got to do a much better job of boxing out to help our rebounding percentage. Again, we drill it. We try to build that habit of always trying to get a body on somebody. But also that's why I love the analytics part of it is you're getting held accountable for it. And you're going to be evaluated every time there's a shot up to make sure that you or one of your teammates gets that defensive rebound and the opponent doesn't get that offensive board.
Yeah, so kind of Dennis Rodman is very similar where he was a wicked good rebounder. So the problem was also that if I remember right, I watched the Last Dance, which is how
beautiful. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Gorgeous, right?
Well, it's because the goal was involved.
Yeah, we'll dream.
Well, that's another whole thing. That's another whole thing. We don't have to get into
that. But that's what we do. Yeah. Anyways, but how much of the percentage is skewed or issued with where the ball bounces? Because it's not something consistent. It's not oh, if it hits exactly right here, it's gonna go exactly right here. So you know it's gonna go. I mean, Dennis Rodman was famous for being able to tell to some extent and have a better percentage and everything. But is it only when that comes to them? Because what if they're doing a beautiful job of boxing out, but the ball never went to them, or maybe it went once? Is that ever considered? I mean, most of the time.
So you got to remember that the rebounded percentage, that's team. Yeah. That's it. This subcategory is individual.
Okay.
So again, we would love our D rebounded percentage to be 100% every game.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't care who gets it as long as we get it. But if we don't get it, I want to let you know, Boston, that you're held accountable for that because you didn't do your job. Now, there might be some situations where it's a long rebound, and that happens in the game of basketball, but we're always looking at the D rebounded percentage as a team. We don't do that individually. Now, I will, or we do talk about how many defensive rebounds you did get, because you talk about Dennis Rodman, his mentality is he wanted to get every one of them. And we talk about the one area in basketball we ask players to be selfish is rebounding. Yeah. Because that's something, again, look at Dennis Rodman. He might have scored 0 points, but he has 20, 23 rebounds because he was he wanted every single rebound. There's a reason Michael Jordan wanted him that second go around because he knew he would do all that dirty work, get all those rebounds. And so again,
possessions,
and again, it all goes back to a possession battle. Everything for us is a possession battle. We want to win as many possessions as possible because if you win all those possessions, then you win the battle.
Is there a certain amount of possessions that happen in a game, and is there a number you have to reach, kind of like an electoral college almost, where it's there's a number you have to reach to win? Is there usually generally a number of one possessions or possessions you have to have those scoring opportunities in order to win a game? Obviously, it'd probably be different because maybe some team is the greatest shooter of all time, doesn't play defense. So both teams can put up massive points. Or absolutely stellar defense, but scoring is a bit of an issue. So how do you? Is there a certain point in time?
So this is the next branch that we also talk about is points per possession. So we look at both our offensive points per possession and our defensive points per possession.
Yeah.
So our goal offensively is a 1.10. So we feel like if that number is greater than that, then we're operating at a very efficient level.
Yeah.
Defensively, our goal is less than 0.9. So if we're holding our opponents less than 0.9, then we feel like our defense is operating the way that it should be. And again, that's per possession. So again, like you might mention, there's some games that might be up and down. There might be 75, 80 possessions, or there might be some where there's low 60s.
Yeah, hard fought.
So everything again is based upon per possession,
Yeah.
and so that gives us a good inclination, offensively, defensively. Are we efficient enough or operating it the way that we want to be successful? And obviously, if your offensive PPP is greater than your defensive PPP, that means you're winning.
Yeah.
But again, we always have our standards that we're basing against, not based upon an opponent. So again, it's those numbers that we're looking at, and we look at those at halftime. We talk sometimes as coaching staff at quarters, different things like that. We do that in practice too. So again, our top group might be scrimmaging, and they know that they're getting held accountable to that PPP number. So you might score the first 4 possessions, but you're not going to coast because you have to make sure those next 6 that your PPP is above that standard that we're looking for.
Yeah. So looking at like some of the best athletes we've had, like what are the certain numbers that they have that are like stellar or like above average that makes them the player that they are?
Yeah, so we talk about shot quality. We were very fortunate the first 2 years to have 2 Division I players, and I showed the kids the numbers of the shot quality, and it wasn't that they were great shooters with contested shots and with guys all over them. It wasn't that they were great mid-range shooters. They were really good at our 4s and 5s that we're trying to get every opportunity. So again, it doesn't matter if you're a Division I player or not. Like that shot quality numbers matter, and so the more that you can get some of those 4s and 5s, the more efficient you'll be as a player. But also, those are some of the things that you need to look at, to expand your game. To okay, how can I find a way to get a 4? How can I find a way to get a 5? And so again, the numbers didn't lie if they're a Division I player or if they were the rest of the team. And so, but also same thing we look at, our different. We also have another one I haven't mentioned yet is our value point system.
Yeah.
Again, our goal there is 1.10, and that's the nice thing with all this data is I can show like, hey, here's a kid that plays Division I basketball. Here's his number. This is where you're at. So maybe it's really close to it, or maybe that's something they can keep striving for to get to that level. And coach, why am I, not Division I? Well, this is what it takes. And again, those kids set those examples not only with the numbers, but also their character, their work ethic every day. And so again, being old, being around a lot of great players, I give those examples. Okay, this is what these kids did to be successful, and give them a really good exemplar of what it takes.
Yeah. It's just like a general question. How much film do you watch? Like how many times do you watch a game? It's just like trying to process. I'm not too much of a basketball mind, but like I have the base knowledge of like I don't decide on what it means, right? But like a lot of it's like super high level stuff. I mean, as a basketball coach who has many successful teams, obviously it's probably a bit easier. But like when you're watching film, like are you pausing a moment and then like writing down like 20 things? Like
it's
does that coaches help? Like
no, I do it myself, and again, it's a passion of mine. I love watching film. I would say more than anything, I just love learning. Like I see it as an opportunity for me to learn my players better, to learn the game better, to learn our team better, and also just the flip side, learning our opponents better. And so the answer of how many hours, I will say not enough. Because again, that's just my mentality is like I want to keep getting better. I want to do whatever it takes to help our athletes, to help our team, to help our school be as successful as possible. And so my answer is not enough.
Yeah. You think if you're like a college coach and you have to spend like the 7 hours teaching and doing homework and stuff, you would feel like always watching film and always like doing different things?
Yeah, so I did spend, we didn't talk about my background a whole lot, but I did spend 1 year at Minot State University Division II school as an assistant coach. And that was a dream of mine, and I absolutely loved every minute of that. And that was even a doctoral part of being a basketball coach, because they have this thing called synergy where they just literally break down everything, and you can watch every Division I team, Division II team, Division III team, even some European. And that was a very fun year for me to be able to have access to that, to watch even more film. So there is a lot out there, and I know there's just still a lot more for me to learn, and that's what I'm trying to do each and every day.
Yeah. Do you ever like struggle to be able to turn it off? Because I feel like if you watch just like recreationally, it's like NBA Finals game 3 or something. Like, you ever just struggle to sit there and enjoy the game, or you're always like, oh, they didn't do this as well, they need to improve this, and like trying to like figure the percentages out, or is it something that you're able to turn off more easily?
So the other part of that is all my film watching I try to do is when I'm not around my family.
Okay.
So when I am around my family, then they're going to get my number one attention. And so especially after games, the kids are in bed, and I don't sleep a whole lot. I don't sleep much after games. Usually I'm pretty ramped up. So that's when I watch a lot of my film. I try to find
Like the night after the game?
Yes, yeah. I don't sleep much after games, and
Someone told me you sleep like something like 4 hours or something a night.
it's a number. It's not a whole lot, but again, I that's just part of what I do. I just enjoy part of that. I feel like that it helps our players, helps our team, and so I might have to catch up with sleep another night. But every opportunity I have when my family's not around, that's when I probably have my computer out watching film, or maybe writing down some notes or things like that.
Yeah. So initially when like either player comes in or something like that, or just in general, like when you send, probably I'm guessing the day after the game you have most of the stats, if not maybe like the first half. Like, do they get like a sheet or something like that, or is it just like a massive spreadsheet and it's like game by game by game, or is like when they walk into like the meeting room, I don't know what you call it, but like are all the stats listed after every single person play? Like, how do you help get them to have the information, and then also at the same time to process said information, looking at, hey, maybe over your averages of all the game averages, like you're on this upswing, except for like maybe this game you didn't play as great. Like, what happened and what can you do better with so you can keep getting better?
Yeah, so it's all of the above. First of all, it is the full game. I try to make sure I have that all done by our next practice that next day. And so in our team room, we have a lot of graphics up that we kind of just we update, for that game. We update the season. It's our KPIs. We have our shot quality, some other things that we keep track of. And then also, as you saw in our locker room, the spreadsheet, I always put that up there. So if athletes want to look at it, they can. If they don't, that's up to them. Then also just part of our practice routine is at the end of practice, we go into the team room, we talk through those numbers, we talk through the film. I always put we call it our Get Better video after every game. And so maybe some clips that we need to improve on, or some things that we did well. So athletes can see those. I share it out with them too, so there's no secrets. But again, it's just they see the numbers, they see the film, and we just see this as an opportunity of how can we learn if it was a win or a loss from what we just experienced. And so again, with that process, game after game after game, hopefully it leads us to a lot of success at the end of the season and during the postseason.
Does all that stat happen just at the varsity level, or do you still do JV and stuff like that, so people could eventually come up and play varsity, hopefully, like get assimilated easier and faster?
So the practice one is for everyone that is at practice. I'll be the JV and varsity. And the games is just through our varsity games.
Yeah.
But I make sure, especially that first week and a half that we have practices, all those stats are out there. So kids can kind of again see where they're at. Are they part of the top 15? Are they close there or not? And also gives us coaches some data too. It's just a tool for us to look at where our players performing and possible rotations, things like that.
Yeah. One last question, and we can move on from stats. I don't know if you're reporting about it or anything, but is there anything to track how defensively, because offensively it would be a lot easier, but like how much a person puts pressures, or I mean pressure would be like kind of like an NFL, not linebacker, but defensive line or whatever, where like they didn't sack the quarterback, but they got close, or instead of like the 5 shot, maybe it turned into a 2, or maybe it turned into a 3. Is there like something that you help manage that, or like recovering for someone? Is there a percentage like defensive wise that you can look at someone being like, you're not putting up 12 points, you're not putting up 20 points a game, but like you're kind of like a Dennis Rodman where you're like putting up these great defensive
Yeah, I guess I missed on this is our opponent 2-point percentage. We do have subcategories under that.
Yeah.
So one thing that we keep track of is deflections. We kind of feel like that is a cheat code. Is if you can get deflections on the ball,
Like just tipped. Or
if you tip the ball, again, it doesn't have to be a steal because a lot of times the kid will tip it, someone else will recover the ball, so they get the steal.
Yeah.
But the tip is what led to it. But we kind of feel like that is a cheat code defensively if you're able to get as many deflections as possible. And the other thing we keep track of is how many times do you allow the opponent to get into the paint? We feel like that's the worst thing is like they get into the paint, that's going to lead to those 4s and 5s. And so again, that's an accountability thing. The kids know like, hey, coach is going to look for anytime I can deflect the ball, or also can I just, keep my guy out of the paint. Along with that, we have a charge wall in our team room to keep track of the kids that actually stand in there and take a charge. Again, feel like that's a really big defensive play that doesn't show up on a box score, but really just exemplifies being selfless, competing, and all our different core values there. So we kind of blow up the screenshot of that of the kid taking the charge and put his name up there. And that's kind of a fun thing as the season progresses. Kids kind of look at how many times are they on the charge wall. This kid might be leading with 4 or 5, and this kid might be right behind, or even it's fun during games too, as maybe the kid or the bench might even say, hey, I'm on the charge wall now, and they do take a charge. And again, it's just a way to celebrate things that we're looking for and make sure they're held accountable for it.
Is there a value set that you have to those defensive plays? Because at least for, like in lacrosse, if the ball's in the ground, it'd be like a loose ball, and you pick it up and 6 of the ground ball. And the general rule of thumb is 4 of those equals a goal, because possession-wise, there's not 60 possessions in the game. But similar with basketball, is there a certain number of, in general, and maybe just kind of idealistically, if something that happens will equal a 15-point performance or a certain amount of points? Because it's probably not less of a 1-to-1 ratio, a 4-to-1, or more I had 8, so it's I have the same impact of scoring 10 points and minimizing. Is it
So for us, it always started our defensive PPP, because again, we want to keep that below 0.90.
Yeah.
Then we feel like if the opponent 2-point percentage is low, that's going to help for that.
Yeah.
And then below that's our subcategories of getting those deflections, keeping people out of the paint.
Yeah.
So kind of our defensive PPP comes first, and then our opponent 2-point percentage, and they all just fit together.
Yeah.
But if we can keep our defensive PPP below that, more than likely our opponent 2-point percentage is really low.
Mm-hmm.
And then our deflections are high, and we're keeping people out of the paint. So that's kind of the hierarchy of that.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on from stats. But mad fascinating. I'm always trying to get better. Most of the time, at least my position with no stats, which sucks. But usually you can just tell on effort and everything. But anyways, so kind of going into expectations from either the community and also just in general. As a coach, you have a lot of, and then in the past too, you've had very great players, people are going to on all this, and the expectation is that you win a championship, and most people don't settle for anything less. If someone's oh, they made it to the semifinals, it's the semifinals is the top 4 teams in all of all of 4A or 5A. That's ridiculous. That's insane. But you're oh, they didn't make it a championship. That has to rest on your shoulders, and you still have to look at that and say, same thing. Well, also, if you have a game for third is going to be a lot more people will be oh, you got third, versus oh, you got second. The value change. But how do you help? How do you as yourself manage the pressure of managing a team? Because at the end of the day, they can have all the talent in the world, but it's up to the coach in order to find the pieces and put everything together. How do you help?
Well, first of all, being at a school, being at a school like Waukee Northwest, I don't care what sport it is. That's our expectation, and that's why I was so excited to get this job. That's our expectation, no matter what the sport is.
Won 14 championships in 3 years.
It's unbelievable the success of all the programs, success of all the extracurricular activities that we have here. We're very fortunate. With that being said, we do have high expectations. Some people say you have a bullseye in the back. Good. We want that bullseye in our back.
Have it and have it not.
However, we want that bullseye to be moving. We don't want that bullseye just to be stationary where it's an easy target for other people to hit.
Yeah.
And for that bullseye to be moving, we've got to be moving. Like, we've got to get better and better and better. And so you talk about those expectations. Well, those expectations go out the window when you focus on the process.
Yeah.
So if we're really worried about our character first with our 3 core values, if we're really worried about our preparation, which then helps our key performance indicators, then it's going to help us reach those expectations.
Yeah.
The number one that we want, and they're out there. I mean, we're not going to shy away from that.
Yeah.
But we have to keep the focus on what the main thing is. It all starts with our character, our preparation, and finally our performance with those key performance indicators.
Yeah. So when eventually you guys go through state tournament and everything like that, or even in the past, like, how are you so prepared at playing the big games that almost it feels like another game? Or, I mean, even for me, like playing playoff games, it's like, well, it's a playoff game. Like, there's not another game after this, and we don't win, right? So, like, how do you help either yourself, or how have you gotten advice to help manage these huge moments as a coach where you still have to keep your cool, and obviously you probably worked on them all throughout different games and stuff like that, but at the same time it's like you, for the whole season, everything you've done since, like, I don't know when you guys first have open gyms, but it's probably like fall sometime, like fall to like what's the championship game, maybe like March or something like that, like almost like 8 months of work leads up to this basically one game, and that's a ton of pressure. I can't even imagine the amount of pressure there's on a coach. But like, how do you help, especially with high expectations from being in Northwest? So it's like, oh, our teams are good, but maybe not this one. But it's like, no, the team's so good. Like, how do you help, or yourself, like, take the time, or take the breath, or just breathe in the moment?
When you're in the moment, so it's hard to breathe. I mean, you don't really breathe until after the season.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's like you've got to have a routine. Like, we can, I mean, everyone day one, practice one is going to be intense. They're going to be very energetic. They're going to be very competitive.
Yeah.
But what about practice number 10? What about practice number 20? What about practice number 30?
Yeah.
If you're not intense, if you're not full of energy, if you're not, again, if you're not competitive, if you're not self-disciplined, you're not going to be on the state championship.
Playing any practice.
You've got to be, like, come back to that consistent. Like, you got to have that routine of, this is how we operate. Because again, it's very, very difficult. I haven't done it yet to win a state championship, because you got to win 3 games in 3 days against the best competition in the state.
Yeah.
But you cannot change who you are. You can't change what you've done in order to get one. And that's what I've learned throughout. And I've learned through my mistakes. I've tried to do that. One year we put in a different offense come postseason, and it was not successful because that's not what we were doing up until then. And so again, that's when you really just focus in on the process. Again, we talked so much about just our core values of who we are as people, our preparation of, how connected we are, are we ready for practice? Are we moving on to that next play? If we just keep the focus in on that, we feel like when it is that postseason, that's who we are, and that's who we're going to become. And that's what, should show up on the floor, that's that state tournament game.
Yeah. You still get, like, I don't want to say necessarily nervous, because nervous would be almost unprepared, but you still get, like, a bit of chills when you walk in, like, you go through the tunnel for the first game, and you get, like, this is real.
I get chills thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I do get nervous, and I tell our players I want them to be nervous, because that tells you that you care. So nervous is a part of being an athlete, because you care. Again, that's part of our awareness of, okay, I am nervous, but also gives some strategies of, that's why we believe so much in mental imagery. And, you talk about, I've been in the state championship game before. Well, I'm able to mentally rehearse myself being there. Yeah. Now, hopefully, again, that gets us back there, and hopefully we can get over the hump. But again, that's just part of that whole mental game of being able to, take some of those past experiences, but also, try to condition yourself to be able to handle a situation like that again. And any adversity that might happen is something you've seen before, or something you rehearsed, and, again, just kind of get yourself to that peak performance state.
Yeah. So, kind of looking at just the team now, with new transfers and everything, expectations are kind of high. So, what can all the listeners and everyone like that kind of expect from this team? This interview will probably, the day of the recording is Friday the 13th, it's December, so.
Hey, nice. I didn't even know that. I grew up on Elm Street. It's kind of scary.
Oh my God, so no way. Anyways, what can we kind of expect from this team, just going forward from like, now? You guys have games tonight, so good luck. But going forward, and then also like the hopes of making the state tournament, like the championship.
Yeah, I would say first of all, you're talking about a group of kids that are very, very high character. They come from very high character families, and that's why I've been so fortunate. I was in other situations, but this school here just really good families, and so that makes my job easier knowing that they're there for the right reasons. The parents are very encouraging and very supportive, and it's a fun group to be around. And they work extremely, extremely hard. They play hard, and we're a group that we're still trying to learn each other. We're still trying to figure out what's going to make us successful. But that's the fun part as a coach is you get a new group every year. It's kind of you're putting all these puzzle pieces together, and you're kind of seeing which ones fit. And but that makes my job so easy is coming every day. I just enjoy being around them. I'm so thankful to be around those high character kids like that want to work hard, that want to succeed, and want to do it for each other, want to be part of a group. And so again, we're expecting a really exciting year, and we're hoping we're just going to try to get better each and every game, learn more about ourselves, and hopefully that as the season progresses, staying consistent. We're playing our best basketball come March because that's when the hard work is inside is in March.
Sweet. Is there anything else you kind of just want to mention on the team or anything?
I just want to shout you out, boss. I mean, you do a heck of a job, and this is a really cool thing that you do here, and appreciate that post game interview and all the pictures you take, and you're a very talented kid, much more talented than your brother, and hopefully he sees that too. But no, thank you for everything you do to support not only our program but all of Northwest, and you have a very, very bright future. So I'm very excited for you to keep doing everything that you're doing. So thank you, Boston.
Thank you so much, Coach. It means a lot. So other than that, I think that's it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Go Wolves.
Go Wolves.